The key to a good box or cabinet build is squareness. Squaring sticks, or bar gauges, take all of the guessing work out of casework because they are, in fact, gauges, allowing you to perfectly measure on the diagonal for square. No matter if your case has proud dovetails, a raised base, or wonky widthed sides. In this video, I'll show you how to make a few sets of squaring sticks just like these and what some of their other uses are. I started off this project by raiding my scrap bin and milling my stock square and coplanar on all four sides. I was left with 7/8 of an inch thick cherry, maple, old Wally McNutface, and some really hard red-orange wood that is not cherry, maybe tiger wood, super dense. I don't know what it is though. I cut the stock to matching widths at the table saw before trimming to various lengths and shooting the ends square. Tip: a marking gauge also makes an excellent depth setup for your table saw. I wanted the tips of my squaring sticks to be of contrasting wood, just for looks. But since that would have been a very weak butt joint, I used my table saw bevel jig to cut tongue and groove joints. After glue up, I cleaned up the edges and faces of the stock with hand tools, making sure everything was square. The whole operation revolves around the two halves sliding along a tongue and groove joint. I started by cutting the groove on one edge of the stock. I'll explain the blue tape shortly. Since I don't have a router table, I knew I was going to use my handheld router with a guide bushing later to cut a slot for the hardware to slide along. This meant I needed to cut my dado width to match the guide bushing. Working from the inside out at the table saw means that the slightest movement of the fence is doubled. The painter's tape allowed me to peel back a layer at a time, run the stock through the saw, and check the fit, making, in essence, micro adjustments. Chances are if I just bumped over the table saw fence, I would go way past my width and ruin my stock. With the bushing sliding nicely in the groove, I sliced off a small piece from the end to use as a reference for the tongue width. A sacrificial fence allows me to bury the blade partially in the fence and work from the outside of my stock in. Painter's tape again allows me to sneak up on my finished tongue width, and I use that small offcut to get a perfect sliding fit. I wanted to cut the hardware groove while everything was still in one larger piece, making the process safer. But the guide bushing for my router went a little deeper into the wood than I wanted. So I quickly improvised an additional base plate for my router from hardboard. Using a drill bit to accurately set my depth stop, I routed out the groove for the hardware using a straight spiral upcut bit. With the hardware groove cut, I could separate the two halves and some skin from my finger. Turns out marking gauges are also sharp enough to cut the hell out of you and your wood. The more you know. I cut the two halves apart at the table saw and then promptly blew apart the project by trying to use a standard bit to drill out the recess for the brass nut. So after repeating all of the previous steps, I started by drilling the recess for the head of a brass bolt on the back side with a Forstner bit, then finished off the rest of the hole with a standard brad point. Tightening the bolt down in place, I can mark around it with a knife and chisel out the mortise. The fit was tight enough, I opted not to glue the bolt in. With the main assembly done, I could move on to adding the points to either end. While I'm applying finish, here are a few bonus uses for squaring sticks. Need to transfer the dimensions of something? Maybe over to the table saw? Squaring sticks gotcha. Need to measure the distance between two awkward points accurately? Squaring sticks gotcha. Pretty much anything inside dimension related? Squaring sticks gotcha. Now, if you've been wondering what that mystery finish I've been using in my videos lately is, stay tuned for my next video where I'll finally reveal my new favorite finish along with giving an in-depth guide and review.